Hello YouTube, I'm Mr. Fraggleswalk and this is my thoughts on The Magician's Apprentice, Doctor Who Series 9, Episode 1. Written by Stephen Moffat and directed by Hattie MacDonald. I think this is probably the strongest season opener since the 11th hour. It has scale, it has atmosphere, it has ambition, and it really hooked me into the world of Doctor Who in a way that a series opener hadn't done for a really long time, and I really appreciated that. It's better than Deep Breath, and on balance, I probably think it's a better first half than The Impossible Astronaut. Directed by Hattie MacDonald. Her previous directing credit was Blink in Series 3. I wasn't sure how she was going to handle this because Blink was a really sort of intimate, tight, self-contained story, but I think she proved here that she can handle the big, ambitious stuff as well. In terms of script quality, it's probably Stephen Moffat's best story since the 50th. I think it's on par with Day of the Doctor in terms of its overall quality. A very, very well written story, very well constructed, kept me guessing all the way through. I thought the cliffhanger at the end was amazing without going into spoiler territory. So, overall, a very good story. The plot was very good. The basic bare bones of the plot is that Davros is dying and he wants to see the Doctor one last time so they can have one last confrontation on Scarrow, where it basically all started. There is a bit more to it than that, there's more layers to the plot that Stephen Moffat has added, but overall that's the gist of the plot, and it's a really, despite sounding a bit paper thin when you say it out loud, it's a really well done story. There is some stuff towards the start of the story which feels a bit frivolous. It almost feels like it was there to pad out the runtime so we can get to the really engaging stuff on Scarrow. But there's nothing wrong with frivolity when it's written well, and I do think these scenes were really funny, really quirky, and really reacquainted me with the character of the Doctor and reminded me why I love this character so much. So kudos to Stephen Moffat for, even though these scenes are purely incidental, making them fun and engaging enough for me to want to watch them. Clara and Missy didn't get a lot to do in this story. This is very much a Doctor-centric story, and Doctor-centric in the true sense. The focus is on his character in this story, which was something that was oddly absent from stories I felt it should be the focus in. I felt like Day of the Doctor didn't really have enough focus on the Doctor as a character until the very end, but this is very much Doctor-centric, and much to the detriment of Clara and Missy, I feel. Clara and Missy, despite being engaging characters and really fun characters, I could watch them both all day. I think they're great. Don't get much to do in this story because the focus is squarely on the Doctor and his position and events. That said, the few scenes they do get together are really fun. I like the dynamic between the two. I think the dialogue is great and really fun and really well written. Some great one-liners from Missy. I wasn't really sure about her last series, but I think I've come round to her character based on this episode alone. I think she's given a lot more fun stuff to do, a lot more fun stuff to say, and as such, she's not as grating as she could be in times in Darkwater and Death in Heaven. I think she's a much better character this time round. As I said, Clara doesn't get a lot to do, but the few scenes she does have are very well done. I feel like the character's progressed somewhat certainly since her introduction in Series 7, because she was a very blank slate character in Series 7, but she's become a lot more competent and a lot more sure of herself, also a bit more streetwise and a bit more less foolhardy, I guess you could say. Partially, I think that's partially to do with the death of Danny. I think that's made her sober up a little bit and appreciate that this stuff is dangerous. Yeah, that's definitely the impression I got anyway. Although one thing I was a bit iffy on was the time skip between this episode and last Christmas. Because I felt like it should have picked up directly where Last Christmas left off. I don't like this sort of discontinuity thing that's going on where you'll drop off Clara and just go off and have more adventures. On the plus side, it does allow for some more in-between continuity material, which will no doubt rise in later years. But in the context of this story, it just felt like it sort of created a bit of a gap, and I was a bit confused as to why Clara was still on Earth at times. Um, so that's the characters really out of the way, except for the Doctor, and he really is the focus of the story, which, as I said, I love. It's very much built around this confrontation with Davros and the Doctor, and this sort of. There's a lot of callbacks to Genesis here, and I think the ethical and moral questions that were raised in Genesis are brought up again. Not really given as much time as I would like, but I feel like towards the end they were very much moving towards the cliffhanger, rather than giving this conversation time to breathe. If you'd cut some of the frivolous stuff out at the start, maybe, and given this dialogue a bit more breathing room, maybe it would have been a better exchange. But on the whole, it was a good scene. The few scenes that Davros and the Doctor do have together are very well written. I think Stephen Moffat has a much better grasp on the character than Russell T Davies ever did. Davros is a lot better than he was in Journey's End, a lot less animated, and as such allows Julian Bleach to really understate his performance and thus come across as a lot more quietly menacing. I won't really go into spoiler territory here because I understand there's still a lot of people who haven't seen the episode and want that surprise left. So, but I will say the cliffhanger to this one was phenomenal, and I think it's gonna leave a lot of people waiting with bated breath to see how things get resolved in The Witch is Familiar. Yes, definitely one of my favourite cliffhangers in recent memory, and I think this episode sort of stuck out to me as one of the best in recent memory. A definite watershed for the show, figuratively speaking. You know, I feel like we've sort of, after all the fluff in Series 7 and some of the iffy stories last year, we might be crossing back into a really great and a really consistently quality era of the show. Sort of like in Series 5, and then Series 6 dropped the ball a bit, and Series 7 kind of meandered around. But this feels like it's going to be the kind of quality season that we've been lacking for a while, and I'm really looking forward to see what they do in the next 11 weeks. Especially what new writers they're bringing in. And that was a trend I really liked last year. They brought in a lot of new writers into the roster. And we had a lot of new types of stories we hadn't really seen before, and that looks like that's going to be a continuing trend. But as for The Magician's Apprentice, I thought it was really well written, fantastically directed, a really immersive, really atmospheric story. Really sucked me into the world of Doctor Who. The characters were really well written. Some great dialogue, some great exchanges, and just some generally great character beats. The central theme was great, although it didn't get enough development time in my opinion. There are some frivolous scenes that maybe could have been cut in favour of something a bit more meaty towards the end. But on the whole, I thought it was a really strong opener, a really engaging opener, and I'd probably give it a B+.